Call this meeting to order with the invocation and pledge by the Honorable Travis Reeder.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to be here this evening. Thank you for waking us up this morning and allowing us to do the things in your will and in your way. Dear Heavenly Father, continue blessing us as we try to do what's best for the county of Newberry. Continue to have everyone that's here, give them traveling mercy so that they may return home to their loved ones. Dear Heavenly Father, we bless you for all the things that you've done and all the things that you're going to do. These blessings we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to welcome all of you here tonight. Thank you for coming to participate in local government. This time also, we've got all council members here except Mr. Johnson, and you popping in and out. You are where you can hear us. Am I correct, Mr. Johnson? Hello?
I can hear you, sir. I can hear you. Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, item number one, and I'll just call on you at each time for your confirmation on the votes, okay?
Yes, sir. And just, I think for our policy,
Yes,
I
you
was
need to
called
stay.
away toward the beach for a work issue, and it took substantially longer than we thought to fix it. And so I'm actually stopped on my way back between Camden and Columbia to participate.
All right, thank you. All right, item number one, adoption of consent agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the consent agenda? Motion by Mr. Reeder, second by Mr. Scurry. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Mr.
Just a
Hill.
quick discussion, Mr. Chairman, there was a name left off incomplete on our minutes from June 16. Mr. Kaiser from the Newberry County Soil and Water Conservation District introduced their new employee, and her name is Krista Lukoski, and that's spelled, I don't know who's, I guess our minutes are being recorded. Okay. It's Krista Lukoski.
All right, anything else? All right, with that change, are we all in, accept the adoption agenda as presented? It is unanimous. Todd, are you in favor?
I am agreement.
Okay, in favor. All right, and item number two, additions, deletions, or adoption for, any additions or deletions?
One other just quick comment. I know at least one landowner affected by the ordinance for rezoning is here tonight and has signed up for public comment. I'd like to give them the opportunity to speak during discussion on that ordinance instead of having to wait until after the ordinance is voted on. So if we could allow a public comment during the discussion of the ordinance.
Do you know which ordinance it is?
Yes, I do. It would be ordinance 7-16-21.
I think we have two people, and due to our typical, I guess you'd say, a deviation from Robert's Rule of Order, we will allow both people that are speaking on that topic to speak before we actually vote.
All right, just wanted to be clear in our agenda.
All right, additions, deletions, anything else? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Mr. Hipp, Mr. Mayorwood, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Johnson?
I am in agreement, sir.
It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, item number three, ordinance number 07-15-21, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the County of Newberry adopted June 20th, 2016, so as to amend zoning map, acting on a request to amend this official zoning map established codified in Chapter 153 of the County of Newberry Code of Ordinances, so as to rezone one real estate parcel totaling 17.73 acres designated as TMS parcel number 52346 from RS single residential to R2 rural. This is the first reading. Okay, Ms. Work, would you like to speak to this?
Yes.
And welcome aboard, and thanks. I think this is your first county council meeting?
It is, and I'm excited to be a part of the team now.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. All right, the owner at 2658 Counts Road has asked a rezoning from RS Single Family to R2 Rural. The owner's grandson is currently wanting to move out to the property. He went to a manufactured home dealership, purchased the home, and he was told that they would take care of all the permitting and get it squared away with the county. Well, they did not do that. They went ahead and put the mobile home on the property. He came in to get power turned on, and we were the bad guys and told him that the property wasn't zoned correctly for a mobile home. As you see on the map, there is R2 behind his property. So he is asking to be rezoned R2 rural so that his mobile home can stay as it is placed. It's been there roughly about 2 months. None of the zoning staff has had any complaints on the mobile home being there currently. We cannot release power until a decision is made on the rezoning.
Okay. Thanks for the explanation. All right, any comments on that?
Has the property been posted?
It will not be posted until the public hearing before the third reading. That's when we post our properties.
Okay.
Planning Commission also voted to recommend the zoning change.
Okay. All right, with that being said, do we have a motion to be the first reading? Motion by Mr. Reader, second by Mr. Hill. Any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor? Mr. Johnson?
Agreed, sir.
All right, it is unanimous. All right, item number 4, ordinance number 07-1621, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the County of Newberry adopted June 20th, 2016, so as to amend the zoning map, acting on a request to amend the official zoning map established, codified in Chapter 153 of the County of Newberry Code of Ordinances so as to rezone 3 real estate parcels totaling 1,269 acres and 78 acres, consisting of a tax map parcel TMS 109-6 containing 800 acres, TMS number 109-11 containing 149 acres, and TMS 110-2 containing 320.78 acres from R2 rural to industrial. This is the first reading. Do we have a motion to speed the first reading? Motion by Mr. Hill, second by Mr. Reader. All right, you coming to talk about this one, Ron?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back in November of last year, Mr. Philip Martin made a request for rezoning change for these 3 parcels for the placement of a solar farm. Once he made his request and application, we took it before the Planning Commission in December. The Planning Commission, after some discussion and opposition, voted to deny it, 5-2 vote. And so after that, Mr. Martin sent Mr. Adams an email and requested that the to come before council be delayed. And so that's why we come in this late after all this time, is he requested to delay the vote. So, and now we're here before you with the first reading, and I think someone else is actually representing the company here tonight. But Mr. Martin, as far as I know, is not working on this project as of now. So it's coming before you for a vote tonight to see if we want to rezone it or not.
All right, questions of Mr. Powell from any members of council?
Do we have anyone from the Planning Commission here tonight?
No, sir, I don't think so.
Would you briefly, in your own words, describe their objection to it?
The opposition brought up several comments about environmental pollution, made some comments about decommissioning, that it would be left up to the county to decommission have the solar panels removed, and there were quite a few other comments. The Planning Commission pretty much agreed with him, except for 2 members, and it was a pretty quick vote.
How many were these landowners that were in this area that objected, and how many were?
Yeah, I believe there was at least 3, and it could have been 4 there. And one of the family members represented the rest of the family and his comments.
Has there been any change in the planning commission, or is their vote still in the negative of supporting this?
There's been no change in that vote. It hasn't been back before them.
Although this may affect the health of the neighborhood up there, there's no changes involved in it?
No, sir. No, sir. No change that I know of. No, sir.
And you're saying the planning commission denied it?
Yes, sir. They did. Staff recommended, planning commission denied it.
Let me
We
ask
have
one.
several people in that neighborhood are still denying it. I don't know how we go forward, but it's several. I know 4 people are denying for that
Yes.
solar system to be up there.
Yes, sir. Staff recommended it because, of course, there's no traffic problems associated with that. There's no noise issues. We have buffers built into the ordinance to require buffers and setbacks. Traffic is really not going to be an issue with that. We also have a decommissioning plan that says that after 6 months of not producing any power, that it has to be decommissioned and taken apart. So, also a bond is in place, 125% of the amount of the decommissioning. So,
I think that was a key point that you just answered. I was
Yeah.
going to ask.
That was what I was
That
going to
bond.
ask. And how long would that bond be good for?
that bond, I don't think the bond expires. Do you know that, Jay?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, if I can interject for just a moment. As you recall, this was part of the revision to the zoning ordinance in 2016. And Ron misspoke on one thing. It is not 125% of the bond. They provide a decommissioning estimate from a registered PE in the state of South Carolina, and they get to deduct the recycling value of whatever is there, and it goes down to whatever that figure is. The minimum bond has to be for $50,000, and it depends upon what that letter is presented. I can tell you, because this is public, we've had 2 solar projects thus far that have made it through the rezoning and made it through the process. In both of those, one is a very small one that was done at the co-op. They had to post a $50,000 bond, which stays during the entire time. There's not a limit on it. And the other is Hecate, which is in another portion of the county, and they basically posted a $50,000 bond too, which is in compliance with the ordinance. That meets the requirements of the ordinance.
Were the size of those, anything comparable to this size? I know the co-op wasn't.
No, the co-op was not.
It's small.
I'm not sure what Hecate is.
I think Hecate was about 55 acres.
Yeah.
So I say
don't think we have one.
this is so much larger.
Yeah.
50,000 would not even be enough, in my opinion.
Ms. Erwood, that's the minimum that it has to be, but it
Minimum.
all depends upon the estimate that the professional engineer shows for what the cost is and what they would expect to get back from recycling the equipment or
Recycling.
selling it. And then you arrive at a dollar. But if they got it down to 0, they'd still have to post a $50,000 bond.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Powell? Comments? All right, Ron, thanks for this moment. We may need you back later, but thanks for right now.
Thank you.
All right, I think at this time, Mr. Taylor, is this the one that you wanted to speak on behalf of? Okay, if you come to the podium, please state your name and address.
Can I take the mask off?
Sure.
Thank you. My name is Otis Taylor. I live on 1938 Harrington Street, a couple blocks from the the courthouse here. My name is Otis Taylor, and I'm the president of TCA Timberlands. That is a small Newberry County company. The letters TCA are for our three children, Trey, Cannon, and Amelia. Our sons live in Newberry County, and our daughter in state. There are many reasons why this solar farm would be a benefit to the citizens of Newberry County. I would like to mention three of these. First of all, we have so many needs in our county. I think probably the greatest challenge of a council is how do you address some of these needs without raising property taxes? If this solar farm is built, you get some help, because over the terms of the lease, the county would pick up over $8 million in new property taxes. And when the county gets that money, it does not need to provide any new services for its citizens. And that is a big win for the taxpayers of Newberry County. Secondly, global warming is a big issue of our day. If this solar farm is built, Newberry County will join other counties in the fight against global warming. And when that happens, every citizen in our county gains. Lastly, I would like to address the hidden benefits that will accrue to the citizens of Newberry County. 36 years ago, our family wanted to do something to benefit the citizens of Newberry County. So we established a small family foundation. Over the years, we have paid out grants of over $1.6 million. We have written hundreds of checks that have benefited thousands of Newberry County citizens. The list is long, but let me mention the top 4 recipients of these grants. Newberry College has received over $400,000 in grants. The Opera House over $300,000. The Y over $160,000. The Newberry Museum and other historical stuff, probably around $90,000. It was a joy to sign those checks. 36 years ago, when we started, we had 1 endowment. Today, there are 7 endowments. 6 of these endowments are vested with institutions of higher education to provide scholarships for Newberry County students. These scholarships are at 4 colleges and 2 universities. Today, 159 students have used these scholarships. Today, these scholarships pay from $500 to $5,000 a year. It is our hope over the next 10 years to substantially increase these scholarships. But how do we do it? Where do we get the money? We do not go out and try to raise money. The money must come from family-generated sources. If this solar farm is built, we will have the money. Federal law requires that we must give away 5% of the total assets each year. This we have done. Currently, collectively, we can pay out a little over $70,000 a year. If this solar farm is built, it is easy for us to see that number being doubled or tripled. And when that happens, every citizen in Newberry County receives the benefits. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the citizens of Newberry County.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Taylor?
What are the yearly expectations in taxes that revenue from this to the county?
I don't know because of but it's not going to be 1,200 acres of panels. In other words, 2 plans that I have seen, 400 and almost 500 acres. So that would be the part, and we're going to grow trees. And so this would just be cutting out part of where we'd be growing trees. It's hard to imagine any land in Newberry County more remote than this as far as anybody could see it. 2/3 of the land is looped by a river. On the other side, it's all forest. On the other side of the road is all forest. And in fact, our foundation owns a chunk of that land across, and we're not going to do anything to it. I mean, it is what we do. We're small, but we grow trees. And so, any other questions?
To follow up on Mary's question, I saw Rick raise his hand back there. Rick, can you elaborate a little?
Yes, sir. According to the economic model I have done in my office, well, according to history, these three parcels generated about $5,000 in revenue in Newberry County in tax year 2020.
Rick, would you please come to the
Yes,
podium
sir.
so that it can be recorded? I'm sorry.
No problem, sir. I'm Rick Farman, the Economic Development Director. I looked up today, these three parcels generated just under $5,000 for Newberry County in the current tax year, current year, which was tax year 2020. A conservative analysis shows that these properties will generate about $152,000 per year for 30 years if it stays under the parameters we're currently discussing. And this would be an incentivized fee in lieu of tax, 30-year scenario with equalized payments.
That was my next question. Was it going through economic development?
We've had discussions with the prospect, with the previous gentleman, Philip Martin, and the previous county administrator has been involved. We've had a meeting where he made an offer to the, or at least proffered a deal to the prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
May I add one thing to that? On the tax that he's talking about, on that house, on that property, was a house built by the Burton family in 1840. In 1995, when we acquired the property, we restored that house and added an addition to it. So by far, most of that tax, you cut out like an acre around it or 2 acres, and that's where that tax is. The raw land itself, the taxes is $2.16 an acre.
Mr. Otis, there was
Yes.
mention that I think you said that over the life of it, it would be an $8 million.
That's what I understood. That's what was told to me. And so I've got to, do you have any things that you would like to speak?
What I'm calculating, 30 years at 152,000 is $4,560,000.
Well,
You'd come to the podium, please, if you'd like to address that.
Hi there, Mr. Livingston. My name is Mac Flores. I represent Ecoplexus. I've taken over this project for Philip Martin, so I'm here representing Ecoplexus. The quote that was given for 30 years does come up to 40, but we have another estimate that was presented at the economic development meeting that I spoke at 2 weeks ago. That one shows a 40-year life of the project at $8.2 million. If you would like, I can give you a printout of that information, or I'd have to email it to you. I don't have it with me right now. But that was in the presentation that we made 2 weeks ago to the economic development meeting.
Okay, so that's basing it off of a 40-year.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, just from a discussion, from my viewpoint, I think this is a good project for the environment. I think this is a good financial decision for county council. I did look at the properties. It does not cause any kind of a traffic problem in the area, nor does it cause a problem with the solar farm being visible from the roads around there. So if we ever approved a solar farm in the county, I haven't seen a better piece of property than this one to put it on.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, I know you're there. I think you got any comments or questions you have on it?
I guess this is a procedural question because this is the first time we've had a position where they had denied it, but it appears there had been some lag between when the planning and zoning denied it and it coming to us. Could since the factors have changed and at least one of the players has changed, could we not ask that they go back through that process and see if their view has changed on that?
Mr. Tothka?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Johnson, that's not really in our procedure. It's been reviewed by the Planning Commission. They've made their determination. I don't know that they would make any change in that determination. At the request of the property owner, instead of it coming to the next council meeting, it was held, and now the parties are still interested in pursuing it. The request remains the same. It's to go from present zoning to industrial zoning, which is permitted for a solar farm.
Okay, just wanted to ask the question. I wasn't sure.
All right, in the zoning capacity, we're having first reading now. Would this one be the same as the other one for public hearing? It'll be posted at that time, so it will be, Ms. Wertz. Thank you. All right, there's Mr. Bremer, I think, that wanted to speak.
Yes.
Okay, if you come to the podium, state your name and address, and
Good afternoon. I'm sorry I was a little tardy for the meeting, but my name is Carl Bremer. I actually live in Irmo, but I am an adjoining property owner. Family property that has been in my family for better than 200 years is right across the river. And I have some rudimentary experience for solar farms. I also own another 270-acre tract that is not immediately adjacent to Mr. Taylor's tract, but it is 2 tracts over. And the solar company, a number of years ago, I think it was around 2, came to me and tried to lease my property. And the attraction to my property is that it has 14 acres of power line, and it encapsulates a Duke Power substation. And I got to investigating that process and procedure. And it caused me a lot of suspicion, and I want to relay my concerns to the council because I am definitely opposed to it, because the more research I do into it, the more I come to the conclusion that this is a bad idea, a real bad idea for the county, and specifically for the adjacent landowners and anybody downstream. Tell you about my experience. They came, the solar company, I don't recall their name, came to me and they made all types of promises, this, that, the other, that my tract was perfect, that it was level, it was this, it was that, none of which was true, because my tract is not level, it's rolling hills, it's really fit for nothing but pasture land or trees. And I don't have cattle, so it's trees. So when this came up, I also did some research into it. And I want y'all to consider some of the research that I've done. Now, as a background to this particular project, I opposed the zoning change for the zoning commission in December of last year, and fortunately the zoning committee agreed with me and denied the zoning change. Since that time, I have had 2 subsequent telephone conversations, one on April the 26th of 2021 that was initiated by Ecoplex. The gentleman by the name of Michael Wallace, who was the vice president of development strategy, contacted me, and basically it was to try to sell me on their project. Okay, that was my impression of our conversation, and he told me a bunch about the property, and he wanted to know my concerns. Subsequently, they being Ecoplex, arranged a conference call with me on May the 13th of 2021. The conference call lasted for approximately 45 minutes, and it was led by a gentleman by the name of Michael Fox and Charlie McClure. And they also tried to question or to one, my impression of it was they wanted to sway me in my beliefs and my research. Second thing is they wanted to pump me for information so that they would be better prepared when they came to the council to defeat my objections. They also asked me about my objections, and I voiced them to them. And I was promised that they would send me information about why solar farms were so great and why they were so successful and why they weren't hazardous to all of us. To date, I've not received any of them. I have made and done some research on the internet, and I would like to distribute, I bought for the council, and I'd like to distribute with y'all's permission each one of these. This is an article that is on the internet. I have researched it, and there are a number of articles on solar farms and the problems that they have.
You need to be sure and give her a copy, the clerk to council, Mr. Bremer, so she has it.
Okay. Now, there's another one that falls right in with it that I'd also like to do it because I didn't understand the terminology, so I Googled it as well. And have now, here's my concern. I'm no chemist, I'm no engineer, I'm a lawyer by trade. But as such, I've been doing that for 32 years. And as such, I do a lot of research in various topics that I don't have any expertise to try to get a working man's understanding of those so that I can be proficient with those. And I also try to apply that practical knowledge to the daily life that I live and that all of us live. And the first thing that I want to address is that anybody in this room, anybody in this county, the state, if you dispose of a TV, you can't just take it to the landfill and throw it away, okay? If you dispose of a battery, you can't just take it to the landfill and throw it away. There's reasons for that. There's toxicities in all those chemicals. And my research causes me to believe that there are toxic chemicals in these solar panels. And problems, predominantly this has occurred more in Europe because apparently they have been more prevalent in Europe, that these solar panels have a tendency to leach chemical. The predominant one is cadmium, C-A-D-M-I-U-M. As I understand it, cadmium is the same, one of the toxics that you find in cigarettes. What Google says is that cadmium and its components are highly toxic, and exposure to this metal is known to cause cancer and targets the body cardiovascular, renal, gastrointestinal, neurological, reproductive, and respiratory systems. Now, my research causes me to believe that these panels, there may not be a problem in the first 5 years with them, but as time goes, everything deteriorates. And these things are going to get to leaching in the environment. And they may not cause a problem. I'm 58 years old, and they may not cause a problem in my lifetime. But as I told you, the property that my brother and I and my 3 cousins own was right across the street. And I don't know what their plans are, but mine and my brothers are going to go to my 2 children. And I don't want to leave that problem for them to make what has been in my family for 200 plus years to be worthless and to be costly. Now, here's how I see this happen. Now, there's another thing that I want to point out. The petitioner in this particular project, and I did a FOI request, And the information that I have is that the petitioner that is asking for this zoning change is not Ecosystems. It is Newberry PV1 LLC. Okay? Now, that brings up a very good point. It's not PV1 LLC, which I suspect was a South Carolina corporation created just solely for the purpose of doing this singular farm. But Ecosystem touted to me in our two conversations that they were a multi-million-dollar firm, $500 million in assets, this, that, the other. They're not the ones asking for this zone exchange. PVC1 is. And why is that? Ladies and gentlemen, it is my belief and it is my position that what this company is doing is this. They have formed this little shell company, and they are modestly funding it, and they are going to fund this. And what they're going to do is they're going to get the government subsidy that goes along with it, and they're going to milk it out, and then they're going to sell it off, okay? Or they're going to send it to somebody else. And when 20 years down the road, when this thing goes bad, if it goes bad, now I'm not 100% sure it will, but there's a high likelihood in my belief when it goes bad, ain't gonna be nobody left, okay? Ecosystems is going to be gone in the night, okay? Because truthfully, you won't be able to prove that they touched it, okay? PVC1's probably go bankrupt or be defunct or be no longer in business. And the group that's going to be left to clean it up is the county, okay? And that's going to be a detriment to the county because remediation of a 500, 600, 700 acre tract of property that abuts a water supply system that's going to have distributed this from Silver Street to Lake Murray on down is going to be a potential tremendous eyesore. And it's going to be a potential problem for everybody, okay? And the county's going to be the one left with it. This project, now I understand the county's perspective. This project looks good from a revenue stream perspective in the immediate future. But ladies and gentlemen, the truth of the matter is, if it looks too good to be true, it more than likely is. Now, there are a lot of red herrings in this particular case. The first red herring is why is Ecosystem not the petitioner, okay? Second red herring is, why do they want to lease the property? And I feel sure if you investigate this lease as opposed to purchasing, because what they've promised Mr. Taylor, if it's anything like what they promised me, was they could have bought the property in 2 years of the lease payment. So why would you do that, okay? One, because they can walk away from the lease. They don't own the property, so they don't have to clean it up. They leave that on him. Second thing is they shift the tax liability to him, okay? So they don't have to pay that. So I have a lot of concerns about this. There has been no environmental study, okay? There has been no engineering analysis or reports committed to this county to provide it with the adequate information for it to make an adequate and informed decision, okay? The benefit to the county, in my opinion, is going to be very short-lived. The potential exposure to the county is going to be tremendous. And the potential exposure to me, my brother, and my 3 cousins it could be dramatic. Now, I'm a firm believer that every man who owns property should be allowed to do with it what he wants. But there's a balancing act. The 7 of you are the balancers. You have to weigh whether what is being asked here, the potential danger, okay, outweighs that. And that's the test that you have to do. Now, I submit to you that this is not a good thing. This is not. The other thing that I want to do, and I challenged these gentlemen in this meeting in our conference call that we had in May. I challenged them. And I said, answer one question. Because my research has also led me to believe that these solar farms are not efficient, okay? And by saying that, they don't produce enough revenue to pay for themselves, much less make a profit. They admitted that these are only profitable because of the government subsidy. As we all know, government changes every 2 years, okay? It changes dramatically every 4 years. If and when our government decides to pull out and decides that, you know, we spent too much money, we have to cut something somewhere, we really don't need solar energy, we're doing fine with our other wind sources or our other fuel sources that we have, and we're producing enough energy, what do you think they're going to cut? They're going to cut this. And when they cut this, it's going to fall back. When they cut it and there's no money in it, I mean, it's just human nature. These people are going to be gone, okay? Mr. Taylor's going to be left holding the bag, and so is the county, and so will me, so is my family, okay? Now, I am asking, as a tax-paying citizen of this county, that this council not approve this, because you don't have the information to make a informed decision at this point. You don't know, you don't have any engineering studies as to whether or not this is an environmental hazard or whether it has the potential of being an environmental hazard down the road, okay? You don't have any information as to the impact that this is going to have on the environment. And all it is a company from out of state who has formed a South Carolina company, a shell company, to come into this state and to try to get government funding, which they will get, and milk it for what it's worth. Now, when it's all said and done, and when things go bad, my family, this county, are going to be left holding the bag. Now, at a minimum, I ask that this council research this issue, that there was a good reason that the zoning commission turned this petition down, okay? I made the same plea to them, and they, in their choice, chose to turn it down. I am asking that you uphold your co-government office in this county and follow suit, because there is not enough information to make an adequate decision, okay? And I believe that I have presented you with documentation. I ask that you read that. Just when you go home, I know everybody's got a computer. You can do it on your phone. Google, what are the dangers of solar energy? There is one article, and I think it was in Spain, where they had 100,000 gallons of cadmium dumping into a river at one point that they had to remediate, okay? There's just a buku of articles out there about the benefits of it. Google how efficient are solar energy. Better yet, go out to the co-op and speak to the management of the co-op. I've been told by members of the board out there that the co-op, as good stewards, tried to get or put a solar panels out there, and they haven't been able to give them away because the return on them is so low. That's what I've been told by the county. I mean, by the co-op board. But you do your own investigation. Please don't take these remarks, or please don't take what they're telling you on face value. I would ask that y'all give this due consideration, and please know that the Bremer family, we oppose it. Okay, we oppose it vehemently, and we ask that you do as well. Thank you.
Anybody got any questions for Mr. Bremer?
Mr. Chairman, just as a follow-up, of course, you've given us some information. This is not complete. You've indicated some things that, of course, may or may not happen. I mean, nobody's got a crystal ball. We don't have one. You don't have one. Sure. I would think DHEC does monitoring of our streams and also industries that have a potential for releasing cadmium into the environment. I'm not opposed to getting additional information. What I think would be unfair, though, is for us to not take the opportunity of passing first reading to give us the opportunity to get more engineering information so that we can make a good decision. Because if we make a decision based on what we've heard tonight, we don't have all the information that Mr. Bremer has identified that we need to have to make a good decision. But if we vote no on first reading, it's dead in the water. So at this point, I would say we need to proceed through first reading and have some, through our Economic Development Office, through some of our engineering resources such as Alliance, that we get the additional information so that this body can make an intelligent decision, not based just on your input or somebody else's, but we'll have adequate input to make that decision.
Yes.
Todd, you got any comments? Everybody else is here, they can speak, but I just want to make sure you have an opportunity.
I'm just absorbing, sir, but thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, anybody else got comments? Mr. Scurry?
Mr. Bremer, you said you refused them on your property?
I did. My property is located on Silver Street Road. It's between the dirt road of Sadler Road and Derrick Road. I have 270 acres in there. They came to me, and they made proposals, and they were going to, wanted, as in this case, wanted to lease the property. And I got to researching it, and I refused to talk to them anymore. I wanted no part of it. I don't think that it's a good idea. I don't think it's good for the county. I'm just going to be abundantly blunt with you. I think that it is a way that entrepreneurs have realized government waste, and waste would be in these projects because they're not efficient, they're not economically viable, and that certain entrepreneurs are capitalizing on them. And just from my experience of having practiced law for 32 years, it causes me great suspicion because in any deal, in any transaction, there has to be benefits, there has to be a parity of benefits between the parties. And when that deal sounds too good, there are red flags that fly up, okay? There are all types of red flags that fly up. So, I mean, I got to investigating it, and my own personal decision was I don't want any part of it. And y'all, I mean, any of y'all know me. I like a profit. I like a profit. I work, 10 to 12 hours a day. I like a profit. But what I dislike worst is being taken advantage of. And I'll be honest with you, I think that these people are trying to take advantage of me, my cousins, my brother, this county. And I don't think it's good for us. And I'm going to oppose it in every way with every breath that I got. And I'm not going to say anything to anybody that I wouldn't say to their face. I told them that I thought it was a scam, and I do. I really do. And I think that these panels have a lot of problems. And just from practical experience, you try to dispose of your computer screen and see what you got. Okay? You try to dispose of your battery and see what happens. Yeah, there are regulations for that, but, you know, why should we have to bear that cost, okay, when something's not economically viable? And what's really happening here is that somebody's trying to capitalize on a environmentally friendly fund that the government has created. Now, I'm all about the environment, but I don't want these people messing up the environment around my property, around Mr. Scurry's property, and around my family property, in my community or in my county. Because I am actually a resident of Richland County, but in my heart, I'm a resident of Newberry County because, as all of you know, and Mr. Scurry can testify, I'm up here a lot. Okay, he sees me cutting grass a lot, waves at me every time. But
All right. Appreciate your comments. Obviously, I think we need some questions answered, probably at best before we make a full-fledged decision, whether that be for even the intensity of what this has to potentially offer or take away from the county, maybe even a full-fledged work session just strictly for this, and I say at a later time just because I don't think we can schedule a meeting next week and get all the answers that we have potentially been posed. I know you're representing the company, am I correct? You're representing the company, am I correct?
Yes, sir, I am. And just so we're aware, we've made several.
If you come to the podium, please.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Mac Flores here with Ecoplexus, and yes, I am representing the company. I do want to clarify, we've made several attempts to address Mr. Brimmer's concerns. When I was here a couple of weeks ago, I did reach out to him that Friday, in which he responded to a text that said, "I'm busy, can I give you a call back?" I did not get a call back. I asked him if I could meet with him the following week, and I got no response. So I do just want to make it aware to y'all that we are making attempts to address the concerns of the community and to address y'all's concerns as well. Mike?
Good evening. My name's Michael Fox. You may have heard my name mentioned by Mr. Brimmer. I was on one of those phone calls, and I represent Ecoplexus. And I wanted to just speak briefly tonight. I don't intend to rebut everything Mr. Brimmer said, although we feel we could, but to speak in support of Mr. Hipp's concept of continuing this process to be able to get all the information. We have the experts that can answer all your questions. We did bring one with us tonight. Mr. Chris Sandifer is here. He's a licensed professional engineer, has dealt with solar for many, many years, retired from Duke Energy, has extensive solar experience. He can answer all those questions, and we anticipate being able to do that at your public hearing. And I believe that the prudent thing for this council to do is to continue the process, to continue to let it go through the process, and let's have a public hearing. We're glad to meet with you anytime, as we are with Mr. Brimmer. Mr. Brimmer is obviously a very good attorney. He's taken a lot of questions and turned them into something that they really aren't. But we want to have the chance to answer those questions that he posed. And I would certainly suggest that you not make your decision based on what you read on the internet, because you can believe and see anything on the internet, but have real people, have engineers that have licenses, that have experience, have property appraisers who've dealt with this, who have licenses and experience. And if they get up and say something wrong, their license depends on it. Don't trust the internet, but continue the process. Let us answer all your questions. There's been a lot of experience with solar. Duke Energy is one of the major solar producers in the Southeast right now, and I don't think they would be doing it if it was a scam. or if it didn't make sense. They know a little bit about how to make money, making energy. So give us the chance to bring all that information to you and answer all your questions. We'd love to do that. We encourage the dialogue. That's why we've reached out repeatedly to Mr. Bremer. And I think the reason he's not satisfied is he doesn't like our answers, even though we believe that they are truthful and they are based on fact and science. But I understand, I respect his opinion, and he's got every right to be opposed to it, but we want to have the opportunity to have that information presented to you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And again, I guess I will say, instead of bringing Mr. Bremer into it at the podium, I would appreciate you addressing his questions and answers, and then we would be able to do that instead of trying to be contradictory at the podium.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
With that being said, Todd, you got any other questions?
No, sir.
Again, I think what Mr. Hipp has said, I think is we need to get a lot more fact-finding out of this before we either approve it or down it, either way. I mean, I think you brought some very viable questions to the table, Mr. Bremer. I think there's some other answers that we just need addressed before we make a decision. One of the questions I do have is how many acres of panels actually will be in place? Does anybody know? I think I've heard the answer, but just because.
Mr. Chairman, until they get an answer to that, have we had problems with the other solar farm in the county?
I'm not aware of any, but that again, I'd like to there's a lot of questions to be answered.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The acreage that will actually be covered by the solar farms is 487.
So basically 1/3 of the property.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Again, I think we need some answers because we've had answers on the, and again, it's not totally financially based, but we've had comment made that there's $8 million in county revenue, $4.56 million in county revenue, $6 million in county revenue. There's a lot of disparity of what's going to be coming into the county based on those comments. With that being said, I guess if council's okay, I'm okay with proceeding with first reading, but I definitely want some answers to questions before we make a final decision on this. I mean, and very good points. So anyway, comments from other council members?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I would hate to shoot something down and we haven't gotten everything, the full perspective. So I'd rather get the full perspective before we decide to move to third reading.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Can I do one more?
No, we're gonna proceed with this at a later time because we could probably go back and forth debating for quite some time now.
Thank you.
Mr. Bremer. Not trying to cut you off, it's just that I think we've agreed that we got to have more information, and if you'd just like to submit any questions to our county administrator that needs to be addressed, we'll be happy to try to find out answers for them.
Thank you.
All right, what's the wishes of council?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that we do have a motion, so I just, or do we have a motion in second? I don't think.
We do have one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then in that case, all
right, all in favor of this being the first reading? Mr. Johnson?
For sake of due process to this matter, I will vote for first reading with certainly the right to change that once we get the complete information.
My sentiments exactly. Okay, so we got Mr. Scurry opposed?
Yes.
All right, we've got a 6-1 to advance this to gain additional information at this time. All right, thank y'all. Thank y'all for coming. Appreciate everybody's input. Like I said, we may determine that we want to have a special meeting. I think we're too early to determine that. I think there's too many facts got to be gathered to make that actually happen at this point. So we may be 2 weeks out or so before we could even truly have that. I think we probably need a special meeting. There's a lot of questions to be answered.
certainly, Mr. Chairman, we should not have second reading at our next meeting. I
No,
don't think
absolutely
we have
not.
enough time to get the information we need.
No, absolutely not. Item number 5, ordinance number 071721, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an equipment lease purchase agreement in the amount not exceeding $481,000 relating to the purchase of certain equipment by the Newberry County, authorizing the execution of other necessary documents and papers and other matters relating thereto. This is the first reading. Do we have a motion this be the first reading? Motion by Ms. Arrowood, second by Mr. Shealy. Discussion, Crystal, is there anything you need to say about this one or anything, or is it pretty clear? Oh, Theo, are you the one that's got it? We're all good with this?
Happy to answer the questions.
All right, anybody got any questions? I think this is money that has been appropriated. It's just a matter of, I guess, bidding it out and seeing where it goes. Am I correct, Theo?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is the 11th in a series of annual lease purchases that this council has approved, mostly for public works and emergency equipment. If you'll recall, these leases are entered into every December and paid off over a course of 4 years. The payment comes from the county's general obligation bond debt service, so it's not subject to your millage restriction. With the ordinance in front of you, the equipment that would be purchased this year is on Exhibit A to that ordinance.
And I think this had to do EMS, flatbed truck for the public works, and
911 voice recorder.
yes, those were the 3 items that we're speaking of in this
Pumper
particular.
truck.
Pumper truck.
Pumper? Okay. All right, we got a motion, we got a second, we got any discussion? All in favor of this being first reading? Mr. Johnson, verbal, please.
Yes, I am in agreement.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Theo, for being here tonight. Councilman's consideration to approve funding for the coroner's van. What's the wishes of council? Do you want to come speak, Ms. Neese? I think this is something that we had I'll get your full detail on this. Based on the synopsis I read prior to the meeting, I think this was something that's in the budget.
May it please council, thank you so much. February of 2021, Vector was doing a maintenance on the Ford truck, 1999 Ford F-250. It was brought to our attention that that vehicle was no longer safe to drive. Therefore, we deadlined it to the maintenance to Vector for, I guess, for it to be sold or whatever the county does with their deadline vehicles. At that time, I addressed this issue with the former county administrator on February 18th with a memorandum stating what Vector had told me and requested that we look into going ahead and purchasing one of the 2 vehicles that we had requested for this FY budget. We were looking at getting a transport van. That way we could transport 2 decedents at one time if we needed to. At that time, it was approved verbally that we could go forth with that purchase. We requested the PO through Ms. Waltrip, and it was sent to Santee Automotive. However, since COVID, Ford is no longer producing right now any vehicles whatsoever. I've waited almost, 90 to 120 days to check on that vehicle. I was told that the vehicle needed to be paid for and purchased by June 30th to close out the FY year, which they could not deliver on that. So now here we stand, still 1 vehicle down and still trying to purchase a vehicle. So I'm coming to you requesting that we attempt to purchase a vehicle in this year, even though it has not been approved.
This was something that was promised to you. When I say
Yes.
it was promised, not approved, am I correct?
It was approved by the former administrator that we could go forth and to purchase the vehicle.
Yeah, but it was not put in the budget, am I correct? Mr.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and obviously, a lot of the history, most of the history behind this issue happened before I got here, but I have had what I would call extensive discussions with staff members, including the coroner, about the issue. My understanding is that, yes, the former administrator did make a verbal commitment to the coroner to purchase the vehicle. The problem being, as I understand it, there was no budgeted money to make the purchase. In other words, it was not included in last year's budget, was also not included in the now current year's budget. However, in my opinion, that's not the coroner's fault. Again, I think she relied on a commitment from the former administrator, and because of that, I think if there is a way to go forward with this, I believe that we ought to do that. So we discussed it. I've discussed it with the finance director. There is a pot of money that can be used for this purpose. In fact, it is set aside for situations like this, and it's the capital contingency account, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, where this funding could be taken from. So that would be, based on the information that I've gathered, that would be my recommendation. Because of the amount of the purchase, again, this was not done before. I believe it should have been, but it was not formally bid out. I think we should go through that process, and I've discussed this with the procurement director. So just to make it, to do it correctly, I would recommend that we bid it out, and we can do that immediately. We're ready to put the bids on the street. Hopefully get them back very quickly, bring back to you, if they're ready, at the next meeting, a low bid with a recommendation to go forward. We've got the funding identified, and we handle it that way. That will delay it a couple of weeks, which, again, I think we've explained to the coroner, but it'll be done correctly, and I would recommend that we proceed in that way.
I'm all about doing it correctly, so what are the wishes of council?
I think we should go with their administrator's recommendations and the needs of the coroner's office, and use those contingency funds in this case to go ahead. But at least at this point, we go ahead and get our bids and then determine if we can. I mean, if the bid's $32,000, which we expect it to be, but a bid comes in $80,000, well, then things might be different.
And if I may, I agree. If it is exorbitantly high, again, this will come back to you, so we're not going to go with it without bringing the bids back to you. So if it is out of what appears to be a reasonable amount, then you'll get another look at it before it goes forward.
Not sure this exactly requires a motion in a second, but you want to put that in a matter of a motion just for the sake of making sure we go through properly? Motion?
Sure, I make a motion that we proceed to allow administration to get bids for a new van.
Scurry, I think you had said second on that.
I second that. I do know that I was in a conversation, I was told that by the prior administrator, that he was purchasing her one in that current year.
All right, this just confirms it, makes it all above board, transparent, et cetera. All right, we got a motion, we got a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. And Mr. Johnson?
It is still unanimous, sir. Absolutely in
Thank you. All
agreement.
right.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, we don't need an executive session tonight. Now, I did hear some rumblings that we do have some appointments tonight. Who all has appointments tonight? Mr. Reader?
I would like to reappoint John T. Nichols to the Water and Sewer Board.
All right, we have a motion for Mr. John T. Nichols to Water and Sewer. Do we have a second on that one? Second by Mr. Hip. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous with Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's still in agreement, sir.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chris Johnson to the Rescue Squad.
Chris Johnson to the Rescue Squad. We have a motion there. We have a second. Second by Mr. Shealy. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir.
It is
still
unanimous.
in favor.
All right. Anybody else?
I got some.
Mr.
John Pollard to the Silver Street Rural Fire Department.
John Pollard to the Silver Street position. A second on that? Second by Ms. Arrowood. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Johnson?
In favor.
It is unanimous again. Others?
I got some.
Okay.
To the Westview Behavioral Health Board, I nominate Bobby Chapman for another term.
All right, we got a motion for Bobby Chapman, Westview. Second, Mr. Hip. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Johnson?
In favor.
It is unanimous. Other appointments?
Yeah, I have two more, please. I
Okay.
have, for the Board of Rescue, Corey Bishop from District 2 to the Lake Murray area.
Okay, Corey Bishop, do we have a second on that one? Mr. Hipp, any discussion? All in favor? It is,
In
okay, Mr.
favor.
Johnson, it is unanimous. Thank you, my friend. Okay, Mr. Marywood, you said you had another one?
Also, the Board of Rural Fire Control, I have Rodney Beatonbaugh for another term, and that's for the Fairview area, District 2.
Mr. Rodney, for
Beatonbaugh.
motion, Beatonbaugh, do we have a second on that? Okay, Mr. Shealy. All right, any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Johnson?
In favor.
It is unanimous again. All right, that's your limit, I think, tonight, you said?
That's my limit.
That's your limit for tonight? Okay, Mr. Hill?
I'm going to break her limit.
Okay.
I'm going to start with the Airport Commission and reappoint Mr. Bird Smith.
All right, we've got a nomination, Mr. Bird Smith. Do we have a second on that? Second by Mr. Reader. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Johnson?
In favor.
Okay, that's unanimous.
I have two hospital board appointees. The first is Mr. Gary Palmer.
All right, Mr. Gary Palmer for the hospital board. Do we have a second on that one? Second by Mr. Reader. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Johnson?
In favor.
Unanimous.
Also on hospital board, Dr. Alan Paysinger.
Dr. Alan Paysinger, hospital board. Do we have a second? A second by Mr. Shealy. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Johnson?
In favor. Yes, sir.
Unanimous.
Joint Planning Commission, Mr. Victor Torano.
Okay, Joint Planning, Victor Teran?
Yes.
Oh, Toronto, okay. All right, do you have a motion for that? Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Reader. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Johnson?
In favor.
It is unanimous.
And lastly, Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. Ty Ransdale.
Ty Ransdale for Board of Zoning Appeals. Have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Arrowood. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Johnson?
In favor.
It is unanimous. All right. Any others? We won't totally limit you out, and if you got another one. Anybody else? I guess that's all for the appointments tonight. Public comments, I think we've already addressed that. Anybody else here that needed to speak regarding any of those? Okay. Comments or requests from the county administrator. I think this is your first completion of a period of weeks now. You want to say a few words and not resign?
This is my fourth week.
Fourth week.
And I'm counting. But it's been good. Everybody's been very helpful to me, and I appreciate the staff. And I've had discussions with several of you as well, and that's been helpful to me as well. But I do want to, and I'm not sure if I'm getting out of line in this section of the agenda, then just tell me and I won't.
We're pretty informal, so just
Okay.
speak what you need to speak, and we're happy with it.
Excellent. I actually just wanted to let you know, just put on everybody's radar screen some of the things that we, the staff, have begun to discuss, and these are big things that you're going to see, so I want you to be aware of them. One being the Recovery Act money that the county is going to be getting. And I'm sure everybody is at least aware that money is out there. We, the staff and the council collectively have to come up with a plan by the end of August, as I understand it, of how we intend to appropriate that money or to spend that money. So again, we on the staff level have begun those discussions. We'll be bringing to you in the very near future some requests, some suggestions, and of course, ultimately, it's your decision as to how you want to allocate those monies. But again, I just wanted to put that on everybody's radar so you'll know that we haven't forgotten it. It's out there, and we'll be bringing that to you very soon. It's my understanding on item number 2, the capital projects sales tax will be up for a renewal in 2022, in November of 2022 on the ballot at that point. So again, we at the staff level are beginning to have discussions about what that may look like, and we'll bring that information to you as well, so we can get council's input as to how or what items you may want to consider for the project list that will ultimately go to the ballot in a year. And I know a year sounds like a long time away, but it's really not. It goes very quickly. The third thing, and the last thing, Mr. Chairman, the redistricting also was one of those big issues out there that's looming, of course, with the completion of the 2020 census. The results are finally being tabulated, and as I understand it, we'll be getting those numbers back beginning in September of this year, so a couple of months away. And of course, with the population counts and how populations may have or may have not shifted, there may be a need to redistrict or look at the districts as they exist today and change those for the future. We have been in contact with the state Office of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs, which heads the redistricting up at the state level, and they work with municipals and with counties in the redistricting process. We don't really have on staff, at the staff level, anyone who, of course, routinely handles this, because this is not a routine function. It's something you do every 10 years. So the state offers those services at no cost to the county, and they work with us and with the legal department and the council in putting together a redistricting plan based on what the census numbers look like. So unless there is an objection from the council, we plan to move forward with the assistance from the state. Again, they're the experts. They guide you through the process, and they give you the technical assistance that we don't have in-house. So again, unless there is objection or any concern on your part, we'll move forward in that fashion, and we really want to get moving fairly quickly, because there are going to be some deadlines that are going to have to be met coming up fairly soon, we think. So again, I just wanted to put that on your radar, and if what I've suggested is not within what you're thinking, then let me know, and we'll pause at this point.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. McDonald?
The item concerning the government funding, that may be something after your staff has an opportunity to look and see where we might be able to, what's approved. That may be an opportunity for council to have a work session just for that, instead of trying to deal with that at a meeting. I think that's going to be a significant item for us.
Some of that at our conference, too.
Yeah.
We'll get some ideas from them.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, if you're talking about the Recovery Act
Yes.
money, and I think you are, I fully agree that this is going to be a very big decision. It's a relatively large pot of money that we're going to get, so we want to make the right decisions as to how it's allocated and appropriated. So absolutely, this is not something I think you can put on an agenda with 20 other items. This needs to have a lot of focus by the staff and, of course, by you, the council member. So, yeah, I agree. A workshop or a work session specific to this issue would be perfect at the right time. I don't think we're at that point yet, but we soon will be.
Okay, other comments for Mr. McDonald? Mr. McDonald, thanks for holding things together. Appreciate all you're doing. I know you mentioned that you feel like you're drinking water out of a fire hose, sometimes cranked up probably at a higher volume than you want, but again, thank you. We appreciate it. Comments from council members. Mr. Todd, so I don't forget you.
No, sir, nothing from me.
Mr. Shealy.
Nothing from me.
Mr. Hip.
None.
Ms. Arrowood.
Nothing.
Mr. Scurry. Mr. Reader.
One thing I had was, I'm sure everybody's aware that Dale Wilkes passed away. He actually lived in my zone. His brother is actually he's on the board of zoning appeals, Patrick Wilkes. Mr. Wilkes actually was professional football player for the New England Patriots. He was also a wrestler, and they called him the Patriot. He was only 59 years old, but as they say, those injuries that those players sustained during the time that they've been playing professional football, it's really been tough on them. So I just wanted to recognize Dale Wilkes as being a Newberryan professional football player and a wrestler.
And a Gamecock.
Yes.
With that being said, I do think that we got three things we probably need to be considering for the work sessions. That's the solar panel situation is a possibility that needs to be coming on. We need to just have some, I guess, updated information and potentially have one there. The money you're talking about coming from the federal government, I think that would be better, probably scheduled after we come back from our South Carolina Association's conference, because there's several items on that particular one that I would encourage everyone that goes to the conference to actually attend, because what I hear might be different from what somebody else hears, and it can vary. So I think the more people go into that. And then another one, as Mr. McDonald said, we probably will have to have one on CPST. We'll have to have multiple. We've had several in CPST. Am I correct, Mr. Cromer? So as that evolves, that's another one we're going to have some work sessions on. So prepared to be putting your boots on and trudging forward with a lot of stuff that's kind of out of the ordinary. Just want to say thanks for everybody's comments, input tonight. Appreciate all the input. So future meetings, we have the Public Safety and Courts Committee on July 12th. We got next County Council meeting on 7/21 at 6 p.m. And then we have a Public Works and Planning Committee on August 16th at 6 p.m. The conference, is it going to interfere with the first August meeting? Well, that's what I was thinking. So I just want to let people go ahead and be aware that we probably will not be having that particular meeting. So, okay, all right. With that being said, do we have a motion for adjournment? Motion by Mr. Shealy, second by Ms. Arrowood. So we are adjourned. Thank you.